everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of The Joy of Being for busy working mums and women in business and beyond who are seeking to unplug from their worries and overwhelm to light up with insight and joy. I, your host, mum, and effortless lifestyle coach Marina Pearson, talk to transformational professionals, business owners, and creatives about what it really takes to have a business and life you can truly enjoy. And today I've got some amazing news. You can now pre-order your very own version of The Joy of Being book, supporting hardworking mums to stress less and live more. If you're the type of mum who is struggling with the burdens of motherhood or modern day life, then this will be a perfect book for you. If you're curious, you want to know more, and you want to see what's up with that book, you can do so at www.marinapearson.com/order. And there you'll find all the amazing goodies that you'll get if you pre-order the book before the 10th of May. And on today's show, I invited Emily Tredget to talk about her experience of postnatal depression. And I really was struck by her courage and tenacity, and how it's amazing that we can create beautiful situations from things that we found hard. So she's gone on to create a beautiful campaign called #ShoutASelfie, helping those that are suffering with depressions and so forth to share that. Plus, she's also created something called Mummy Links, and an opportunity for mums to get together locally so that they feel supported. So we talked about her experience of postnatal depression. We talked about her expectations of what she was supposed to be doing as a mother, as opposed to how she was actually feeling. We also talked about what really helped her, how she actually came to accept that she was where she was and it was okay. We talked about how mums tend to put a lot of pressure on themselves these days in terms of once they have the baby, they just have to get on, and how actually in some cultures, that's actually not the case. They actually spend the first 40 days resting. But something that really struck me from the conversation was how difficult it is to navigate life when you don't actually understand or know that your experience is being created by thought. When you think, or when we think, that our experience is being created by something other than thought. The sleepless nights, the crying of the child, and so forth and so on. It gives us that feeling that we can't cope, but somehow we then turn it on ourselves and think that we are the ones that are failing, when that actually isn't true. I also really heard how useful it is to know that those feelings that we don't necessarily like to spend much time in are just waking us up to the fact that we're just looking in the wrong direction, and just letting us know that we think that something other than thought is creating our experience. So if you know of anyone that's going through postnatal depression, if you know of anyone that could do with some help, or if you are listening to this and you are too, then I invite you to come and listen, share, and enjoy. So I'm super excited to have Emily Tredget. You know, funny how we're guided, right, to kind of have conversations with people. I saw her post on one of Facebook groups about what she does and what she's up to, and I reached out to her, and we had a really beautiful conversation about postnatal depression, although I know it sounds strange, right? Beautiful conversation about postnatal depression, but I guess from two women that have experienced it, it was just lovely to see that she's actually doing something really quite amazing from having experienced something like that. So I decided to kind of invite her on to share her story, but also to share what she's creating, and how we can get involved. So welcome, Emily.
Thank you. Hi.
So let's start with your story. Like, you know, what happened? Where were you? What was going on? Like, you know, what was life before pregnancy? What was your life looking like that? And then kind of where did it go to next?
Sure. So I studied engineering at university, became a strategy consultant, and then worked for about 5 years at Innocent Drinks, the smoothie company. And I was really enjoying my career. My life was really successful, you know, was kind of expecting that when I got to the stage of starting a family, I would start a family, you know, take maternity leave, and then continue a career, potentially part-time, maybe full-time, wasn't quite sure. But I guess it kind of all changed when my experience of motherhood wasn't kind of the one that I expected, whether that was from the movies or from friends or whatever like that. So in hindsight, I actually really struggled with prenatal, so during pregnancy, anxiety. But because mental health wasn't on my radar at all at that stage. I didn't really notice it. I just thought, you know, I'm a bit anxious. It's all part and parcel of having a first baby, and you know, there wasn't anything really I could do about it or anything that I needed to flag to anyone. But when I had my son, I ended up with a kind of a partially planned cesarean because I had preeclampsia in the end. And I guess my experience was not what I was expecting. I was incredibly anxious being in the hospital. I kept on going outside to get fresh air before I had him. They called me like the runaway mum, a bit like the runaway bride. And I guess I just didn't bond with him the way I was expecting to. But at the time, I didn't really realise that was weird because I was so caught up in my head trying to get myself through the experience. It's just in hindsight that I saw a lot of this. And when I got home, I felt much better. But then when he hit about 3 months old, he started sleeping through the night, which was brilliant. Like, you can't ask for more with a 3-month-old, really. A lot of people would kill for that. But I suddenly stopped. And I survived definitely the word, the next 6 months on about 1 hour sleep every night, which was awful. And I know obviously lots of mums don't have much sleep. That kind of comes with the role, but it was like on another level. I was so exhausted throughout the days and then completely couldn't sleep at night. And I found that very frustrating. And I think with that kind of brought on the anxiety. And then that made me feel really depressed because I had always been the kind of person who could be really strong and could kind of battle through anything, whether it was a work thing or anything at home, like I could, you know, get through it. And suddenly I didn't seem to be able to. And that made me feel really kind of down and kind of like, oh, I'm really failing at this mum thing. And, you know, am I a bad person? And I kind of went from, you know, being able to talk at conferences so I used to do supply chain at Innocent, so kind of run supply chain stuff. But suddenly I couldn't even have coffee with a close friend because the thought of them coming round would just fill me with dread. I'd get hot and sweaty, it's a bit disgusting, but just felt like I couldn't be there. Like I felt really trapped in my own house. If someone came to visit me, I'm really trapped in a cafe or their house or wherever if I went to visit them. And so I got to the stage where I was basically on my own in my living room, quite often not even with my son. My mum lived around the corner, so she'd have him quite a lot during the day, because I also had this irrational fear that I was going to be taken ill, and then if that happened, like I was going to faint or something like that, if that happened and I was the only one looking after him, like what was going to happen to him? Like how long was he going to be on his own for? And I think that's, having done research now into mental health, kind of having obtrusive thoughts like that is one of the big symptoms that people often don't actually talk about. And yeah, it just became to the point where I wasn't really living life at all. I was just literally existing day to day.
So I really resonate with this. But wow, you had a 3-month that slept.
Yeah, that was the silver lining at the time. Yeah,
it makes no difference if you're not sleeping. I remember dreading nighttime. Like it was this sense of dread that would come over me, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, will he sleep? Won't he sleep?" And then he wouldn't sleep, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, how much time is he going to take to sleep?" I was just so consumed by all of these thoughts and all of this thinking around sleep deprivation, because I'd always been that sort of person that loved sleeping. I don't know about you, but suddenly from going like I can go to sleep when I want to, well, I guess 8 months into or 6-7 months into the pregnancy, that's not the case anymore. You don't really sleep all that much.
Yeah.
But then kind of going, oh my goodness, I've got this little thing is at my beck and call, and I was really struggling with that in terms of the amount of thinking I had around it. And then interestingly enough, and so I had an insight about sleep deprivation, which was really interesting for me, because I thought that the sleep deprivation was the issue. I didn't realize the amount of thinking I had about the sleep deprivation causing the insomnia.
Yeah, completely. I found, because I wasn't worried about my son being up at night, but every night as it approached bedtime, my anxiety would go through the roof because I was so anxious that I then wasn't going to sleep. And of course that anxiety then means you're not going to sleep. And also the other thing is actually insomnia, I've since found out, is a symptom of various mental health issues like postnatal depression and anxiety. So actually did the anxiety and depression come first, which caused the insomnia? Or was it the insomnia that caused the anxiety? And yeah, I remember reading an article probably a year or so ago now, where they took a group of students and they disrupted their sleep quite a lot. I think it was just for 2 nights, not for very long. And they looked, they had some graphs that they published that looked at their levels of anxiety and their levels of depression after those handful of nights. And they just shot up ridiculously. And I remember thinking, gosh, if that's like a student who, let's be honest, might not sleep that much anyway for various other reasons, but, they're otherwise quite healthy and it massively affects their mental health. You take a mum who's got this day in, day out, they can't have a lie-in in the morning like a student might be able to. They can't, take a day off like a student might be able to. Like, they haven't really got much hope. Like, you do need a lot more of a support structure around you than we typically now have, because quite often, so I live on the outskirts of London, and quite often people don't live near their parents or aunties and uncles and everything like that. And they may have even moved from the flat or the smaller house that they have started their career and their relationship in, near some friends, further out to a place that's, suitable for a family. And they don't actually have any support structure at all, particularly, with like church going and things like that reducing as well. Like, you don't typically have that support structure. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think postnatal depression and other mental health issues are on the up. Obviously, also we talk about it more, so we do know about it. And I've also, I think, through my kind of research for Mummy Links and what I'm doing now, I've definitely found that there seem to be 2 kind of socioeconomic brackets that really fit into having these struggles. Obviously, mental health can affect anyone, but it often seems to be either the mums in the lower socioeconomic bracket that may not have a partner, might not have the money or the support around them to help them through it, to go to baby clubs and see people and stuff. But the other big one is the kind of career women who are used to being independent, in control, haven't been brought up to be mothers like our grandparents or our mother's generation may have been, but suddenly are thrown into this world where you kind of think, I can carry on with my normal life and this baby will fit in. Mm-hmm. But like, it couldn't be further from the truth, not only physically, but it does, I think it changes you. Like, so many of these mums that I know, they say, it just changed my priorities. Like, and it just, I think they have a bit of a kind of identity crisis. I definitely found that. I was like, who am I anymore? What am I? We're so used to achieving, I think. It's like, what am I achieving now?
Yeah, I hear you. I remember, so interesting, because I was very much that achieve and strive, and suddenly then I had to get really comfortable with not doing that. And but it's been such a huge gift.
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing to learn.
Yeah, right. But at the time, it's kind of like, what the hell's going on? Like, yeah. But it was this moment where I was literally looking at my wardrobe. And I had clothes that were there before Leo, so Marina's body before. Clothes that were definitely part of the whole mummy program, which seemed to take up most of the wardrobe. Breastfeeding tops, tracksuit bottoms. But there was nothing for the woman that I am at that moment. Like, there was nothing for Marina the woman, not the mother, not before the single, don't know what it's like to have a child, but nothing for the woman that she was today. And that really struck me, because there was a sense of, I don't actually know who this new woman is. Like, there's this new woman that's appeared, but I'm not even sure what she likes.
Yeah.
And how to even be comfortable in this new body that I was in, because I don't know about you, Emily, but my body has completely changed.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one. And I think we often fight to get back, whether it's, physically, body shape, or mentally, back to where we were before we have a child. And actually, you're not the same, but that doesn't necessarily, like you're saying, you're not just a mum. You are a new person. We're obviously the same person, but you're like a new personification of yourself, or whatever.
A new expression of who you are.
That's it. Yes, new expression of who you are. And actually, that's okay, because I remember I saw lots of therapists as part of trying to get better. And I remember the one that kind of eventually made me better, because it did take a while, she said that I needed it to accept, and those around me to accept how I was now, to not constantly strive to get back to the person I was before, but to accept how I was now. And I thought, I mean, obviously the how I was now at that point was quite a broken person. And so I remember for a time thinking, I don't know whether that's right. You know, I don't want to stay like this forever. I want to get back to where I was before. I at least want to get back to, you know, enough like I was before. And I remember she actually said that, I mean, I have the most supportive, loving husband I could ever imagine. But I remember her saying that even when he says in love, you know, I'm going to fight to get Emily back. We're going to like try lots of different things until we find what works. And she actually said that that wasn't helpful. What would be better would be for him and other people around me to say, we love you for who you are, and we accept how you are like this. And if this is what life is like, I'm standing next to you and we're going to do it together. And actually and because that is true of his opinion, it's just not something that he would have ever thought to say. But when he started saying that, and I started saying that to myself, accepting myself, even if that meant I was just living in my living room for the next week, then slowly I stopped beating myself up. I started to see small achievements and successes in, you know, going and walking down the road with my son, or going to the local shops once a day. I saw that as a success, as opposed to one overall giant failure of, oh, well, I went to the shops today, but seriously, like a normal mum would be able to do that and do this and do this and do this and do this, when actually I went to the shops today and that's more than I did yesterday. And it was just accepting that, you know, I would just expand my boundaries slowly from, you know, from my living room out to my house to my, you know, further out, and invite more people into my life slowly. And yes, accepting that there'll be days when, you know, I didn't do as well as the day before, but equally that was okay as well. And for me, that was a really big turning point, because otherwise I was constantly battling with myself and berating myself for the fact that I wasn't achieving the life I thought I should, far from it. So it's a kind of backwards thing, but it really made a difference.
Yeah, it occurs to me that you heard something for yourself, that you had some sort of an insight, some sort of a shift in the way that you were seeing it, a glimpse of what was actually possible, as opposed to the kind of habitual thinking that you were in. It's interesting that we consider ourselves to be broken, right? When in fact we can't be. With what I've seen over time and time again with all the mums that I've worked with the transformation stuff that I've done over the last 15 years, the huge resilience that we have. I was interviewing someone the other day who lost her daughter, who lost her son, and then who lost her fiance.
Gosh.
She is the most beautiful, loving, happy person I have ever met.
Wow.
And what that would suggest then is that we can't break. To me, that is so hopeful. And what I hear and what you're saying is that we may think we're breaking. We may think we are failing. We may think that we're no use. But actually, if we're not our thinking, then somehow it's okay. Like, we don't need to take that thinking seriously. Like, we can have those thoughts. But
yeah, I think we do still need to look after ourselves. I think if you were in that situation and you weren't able to have any support around you or take any time for what we now call self-care and things like that, I think you could push very close to or get to breaking. But I think we can take on, you're right, an awful lot more than we think we can. And yeah, I think it's those people who have a good support system and a good kind of outlook on life, which, you know, I obviously didn't have a few years ago, but I'm kind of learning there that, you know, life sometimes is rubbish, and sometimes really difficult, awful things, unfair things do happen. But if you have the kind of systems and the support and things like that in place, you can get through anything. But yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a tricky one. But yeah, no, I think, yeah, definitely coming out the other side. And then the number of mums I speak to now who have struggled and now want to help me with what I'm doing, because it does create this, I don't know, sisterhood, maybe sounds a bit cliche, but kind of like this sisterhood of mums who have struggled, in this case with mental health, but want to help those who are now struggling and getting through it. And I think that's a really beautiful thing, because we are the mums who have experienced it firsthand. And whilst everyone's experience is really different, and actually that's something I've definitely learned over the last few years, we can give hope and support to those mums who are there now.
Yeah, and that just, you know, shows me the beauty of humanity, like that sort of joy, resilience, love. And I wasn't, you know, and I know support is super important, especially, you know, there's a chapter in my book that talks about this very thing, because society in the modern day life that we have today, it's not set up like it used to be. Women used to, especially when they had the first children, they had something called the red tent. So they would basically spend 40 days resting.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So the family would take care of the child. Now, there's something really important about that, because it was accepted that that's what was going to happen. Culturally, that was a done thing.
Yeah.
So there was no expectations of the mother going to work. There was no expectations of the mother doing anything other than resting.
Yeah, hosting family and friends, and
none of that. You're resting for the next 40 days, and we're going to take care of you. Right?
I think it still happens in some, is it Far Eastern countries? I think I was speaking to someone the other day, and they still do it.
Yeah, they still do it. Yeah. So, and they do that in like when I was because I was in Bali, and when I had Leo, and for the first 10 days we had something called a food tree, which is friends of ours delivered food. So I wouldn't have to get up and cook and whatever and what have you. I don't have parents. I didn't have a support. I had my ex-husband, my husband at the time. Some friends would bring food, and so they would put that in the freezer and what have you. Now, we now have shifted expectations. The expectations that we now live in are different. Like maternity leave in the States is like 6 weeks. It's just not.
I know. You could hardly be through a C-section in that time.
Right, no, like totally not, right?
Yeah, mad.
Then, of course, changing from place to place to place to place. You know, some families are set up that they have to move every 2 years.
Yeah.
So in terms of support system, in terms of people connection, in terms of the physical aspect of it, like absolutely, I don't think we're set up.
No.
Especially if you're getting over an operation, which for us go-getting women, it's like, oh, I'm fine. Well, no, it's a huge bloody operation.
Yeah.
Like, but because we have that, oh, we're fine, we're good, we can just get through it. Like,
push on through.
Right? If you're going through hell, just keep going.
Yep.
There isn't any space for, or maybe there should be, and maybe we need to make sure that that's being talked about, which is, it's okay. It's okay to feel shit. It's okay to feel tired. It's okay to just not want to hang out with your baby. It's okay to want to sleep. It's okay to pass your baby on to other people.
Yeah.
The one thing you have to do after you give birth is to look after yourself for the next 40 days. That's all you need to do.
And I think people, or the people I've come across, are better at doing that with a second child because they have been through it once and they see, actually, when people offer me help, I should take it because I need it. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Whereas with your first child, you have your family and friends around, you're doing them tea and coffee and cake, and you're on day 3 or something ridiculous. And actually, 1, no, they don't need to come around on day 3. And 2, if they do come around on day 7, 8, 9, 10, or whatever it might be, maybe they could, run the Hoover around or make you tea or something like that. And I think people are definitely, from my experience, I mean, I only have 1, but my experience, they are more willing to take my offers of help when they're on a second child, because they know that it's a long slog. It's not just get through the next couple of weeks, it's the next couple of years, and that takes a lot more.
So something that I'm hearing you say is that there is a difference between what I think I should be doing, how I think it should look like, and then there is listening to what my body needs. And our intellect is so good at overriding that intuition and that wisdom that's inside of us. But in hindsight, and I guess when we go into having our second child, that then we've kind of gone, actually listening to my body might actually be a worthwhile thing.
Yeah. And I think you value the role of a mother more once you've done it, because if I'm honest, I used to think that being a mum was quite easy. That, you got to sit around at home having coffee, chatting to your friends, that it was, I didn't think it, I thought it was hard work in one sense, but I didn't think it was anywhere near as hard work as it actually was. Mm. And so I think you need to take that into account. Like, you then think, actually, being a mum is a full-time job. Like, there is, you're constantly thinking about, is my son or daughter healthy, happy, they're getting everything they need, you're planning, like, have we got enough nappies, have we got enough food, all these different things. And even actually, if you're not around your child all the time because you have gone back to work or whatever, you're still most of the time got that in the back of your brain. And I think society doesn't value the mother or the father, if it's the father at home, as like a role. I remember reading an article, it's probably a year or so ago now, and it worked out how much a mum should be paid if she was paid for, her chauffeuring and her chef work and her, cleaning work and all that. And it was some ludicrous amount of money. I won't be able to remember what it was, but it was definitely over £100,000. Like, it was like a really large salary. And yet, obviously, we do it for free, which, I wouldn't expect to be paid to do it. But if it, it adds so much value to the family unit as a whole, and definitely to the child. Yes, it shouldn't be salaried, but it should be valued as something, not just, I'm just a mum, which I think, I remember when I wasn't running Mummy Links or anything like that, I think, go to a wedding or whatever, and you're meeting people and they say, oh, what do? And you're kind of like, you don't just say, I'm a mum, you say, I'm just a mum. Because you're already kind of putting that derogative slant on it, that actually it's not worth anything. And actually, we need to start standing up and saying, I'm a full-time, well, it's not even full-time mum, I'm a mum. And that's fine. But it is tricky. I think it's, we're a long way off.
Yeah. And I find that really interesting that we are the ones that judge it.
Yes. Yeah.
We're the ones that have some sort of negative connotation around that role, because we place a higher value on something else. And I used to live in that reality, and I don't know if that's something that you, obviously from what I'm hearing you say, is that reality doesn't feel true for you anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that actually there is massive value in bringing out a beautiful human being into the world. And actually, one of the things that I've really seen in this journey of motherhood is how present I've become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how they are amazing at indicating whether you're being present or not in the moment. And it's one of the hardest jobs, I think, because we're so bloody distracted, right? I don't know about you, Emily, but especially now with your campaign and so forth, it's like, I've got this and blah, 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 blah. It's actually get really quiet. And so Leo for me is a meter of that. He can feel it a mile off whether I'm being present to him or I'm not.
Yeah, and you have to be really strict to yourself, don't you? Like, I try and fit all my campaign work and stuff when my son is at preschool, and I definitely notice it's Easter holidays at the moment, and I definitely notice that. So I have some days where my mum has him, and I'm completely in work mode, but I have some days where I've got him the whole day, and something pops up on your phone, and it kind of just the fact that then I'm like, oh, I should be sorting out on my phone, but oh, I should be looking after him as well. Just that split second thought brings in all like the mum guilt, the kind of overwhelm, the kind of like, oh, what, you know, I'm going to let one of those sides down. And actually you have to try and, well, what I found, obviously it's different for everyone, but that I have to have, you know, some days I'm working, or some time periods I'm working, some time periods I'm not. And you have to try really hard not to let those merge. Otherwise, yeah, you don't do either of them a full service, and actually you're doing yourself a disservice as well, because you've got all those kind of thoughts going through your head of, you know, which one's right and am I doing the best thing and all that kind of stuff. So it is difficult, but yeah, it is an interesting one. I think we have, you know, we want to bring up a good, healthy, strong next generation. I remember I spoke at a conference run by an organisation called Mothers at Home Matter, gosh, probably in November, I think. And there was a lady who spoke after me who she was a scientific researcher, and she'd been looking into lots of research into the kind of what happens if children are put into really, really long childcare hours too soon and for a long time, and kind of finding that, you know, I'm not a scientist anymore, so I can't remember all the words, but, you know, like the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala and all these different parts that just don't develop properly if they don't have that loving, she was talking about like eye contact and touch and bond, and I was listening at it to what she was saying from the, oh, well, that's very similar to mums with postnatal depression, actually, because it often is the lack of touch and contact, eye contact and bond, and kind of think, oh gosh, what does that mean for the postnatal mum? And she was saying things like, you know, it can actually affect obesity, which was kind of the whole room kind of gasped, like, really? But also, like, it can create, I think she said, anxiety in teenage girls and aggression and low empathy in teenage boys. And you kind of think, well, actually, that's, you know, that quite well describes what we're seeing in a lot of teenage society. Obviously, you know, gross generalization, and it just makes you think, actually, if we could help mums feel better, we could reduce postnatal depression symptoms and help mums get over it quicker, because it affects, they say now, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 10 men. You know, that's a big chunk of society. So we need to be helping those parents to interact well with their children, whether it's because they've got postnatal depression or because they're being forced back to work, you know, after 6 weeks in the US, like you say, or a year or so in the UK. Actually, will that help reduce not only the mental health bill, but, you know, society's unhappiness as a whole going forwards? And it is interesting. I'm just looking at doing some research, and I found that the cost to society is in the UK per cohort of mums, well, of babies born to mums struggling with a mental health issue, postnatal depression, anxiety, OCD, etc., is 8.1 billion per year. And you just think,
wow,
it's a huge amount. And they said that, I think it was nearly 30% of that cost is to help the mum, but 70% is to help the child throughout their life. If the proper, you know, support and stuff isn't put round the mum and the family at the time. And you just think, gosh, this is something we need to get on top of, because actually, if, you know, mum's struggling with postnatal depression, we're not looking for help because we think we can do it ourselves. Or in fact, the number of mums who say to me, I didn't realize I had it actually until I was better. And that, you know, some of them say, you know, I lost 2 years of my life and I didn't realize that was the problem, because there's not the level of knowledge that, you know, here's a long list of symptoms that you need to look out for. And actually, if we can help those mums to realize it sooner, to feel happy to get support sooner, and therefore to get better sooner, that's helping not only them, but, you know, their kids down the line. So yeah, something I'm very passionate about, trying to, yeah, reduce that stigma and increase the awareness of it, so that hopefully we can help ourselves and generations to come. So we'll see.
I was listening to a podcast the other day by a psychiatrist called Dr. Bill Pettit.
Mm-hmm.
And he's dealt with psychosis, depressions, anxieties, and so forth and so on. And in this particular podcast, he was talking about a boy that was born without a brain.
Oh,
So
gosh.
basically, he was only using 2% of his capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But through the love and understanding of his parents, he grew most of it back.
Wow.
So on his research and findings, as he does a lot of research, he has seen time and time again that love and understanding is a really big part of the way in which we feel connected. So when he talks about love, which is love is enough or whatever, but actually understanding we're all having our own experiences, our children having their own experiences that are separate from us, and that no one's having the same experience as we are in that moment, right? To see that and be able to go into that person's world, like that to me, and he said it so beautifully. He said, isn't it more beautiful to actually open up your world, to make it a little bit bigger by just understanding someone else?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to see life in the same way as you. And for me, I just really loved that. It was so beautifully said and so beautifully put, and that's enough. In fact, he's seen time and time again that understanding that actually that's enough. And he's seen miracles happen in his practice. People with anxiety disorders, gone. People with depression, gone. It kind of comes back to what you were saying before, this love and understanding, this support, or just basically people in our vicinity. So I guess my question that I have around this is for those that are listening in and for those that don't have that support, that physical support, because I mean, obviously mental too, but physically, like I need to bloody sleep, but I can't afford to pay somebody to take my child away right now. Child screaming their head off. I need to rest, but I can't because don't have that support. So does Mummy Links help with that? Like, is that a way in which they could reach out to others?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess with Mummy Links, my aim is to help all mums, not just those mums who are struggling with mental health, but the idea is that if all mums can create that support structure around them locally, that then those who would struggle may now not struggle, or when they do, they've got support around them to help them. And how mums use it. So I have firstly a Facebook group so it's all quite small at the moment. It's got about 4,000 mums in it, where you can post, a question, I'm struggling with this, and you'll get support from mums. And a large majority have struggled with mental health. So that, you've got that perspective there. And it's an invite only or approval only Facebook group, so that mums can trust those people there. But then with the app that I launched last June, again, it's invite only through the Facebook group to keep mums knowing that they will be meeting someone who's like a friend of a friend somewhere down the line. They can use it to find mums last minute safely, as I said, but also locally. So you literally, it's the simplest thing ever. It's very, very simple. You put in, that I'm going to go to this park 3:00 this afternoon, pop in the postcode, the time, the date, and you send it into the app. And then that pings a notification to all the mums within, at the moment, it's 30 miles of where you are. It's UK only at the moment. And that sends a ping to the person's phone that says, this person, user 123, is going here. Would you like to join them? And you can say yes or no. And there's a little bit of a comment section underneath that play date, we call them. You can, say, oh, looks like rain, or going to be late, or whatever it might be. But it's about using technology to facilitate face-to-face meeting. Because there's lots of research. We know that technology and social media and things like that has great benefits, but also can be detrimental to us as well. And I didn't want to create another platform for mums to, debate parenting techniques or whatever it might be, but it's literally helping mums close by connect in real time. They get out of their house for a bit of fresh air, a little bit of exercise maybe if they're going to walk there, and like a chat. And the plan is, well, not the plan, it works. It's like non-judgmental. It's not matchmaking. This mum's like me, or she's in my social economic bracket, or I'd be friends with her forever. It's literally, I want to meet now. She's free to meet now. Let's go. And I think I set it up because it's kind of what I wanted when I was struggling with mental health a lot, because I couldn't sign up to, the monkey music courses or the baby massage courses or whatever, because I didn't want to waste money on a 6-week or 12-week course where I had not a clue whether I was going to make a single class, because I didn't know if I was going to be having a good day or a bad day. And actually for me, as I said before, getting out and going somewhere new was something that I really struggled with. And so I wanted to be able to meet just mums kind of on my terms, and actually find, because I found as well that I'd stopped creating play dates with my close mum friends, because quite often I'd back out at the last minute due to anxiety. Like I mentioned, I couldn't like have friends around for coffee and stuff. I'd come up with some silly excuse, or I'd say I was feeling really ill last minute. And then obviously some of them stopped trying to set up play dates because I was completely unreliable, which it was not a personality trait I normally have. I'm very reliable. So I then found that very frustrated in myself. But the idea that you can just be like, oh, actually I want to do something now. Let's see if someone can join. Or the converse, which is, if I'd had Mummy Links app in my pocket and it pinged and it said, you know, so-and-so that I may or may not know is going to the park in 2 hours time, that might be enough to get me out of the house. I might not have thought of going to the park, but actually the fact that it's pinged says, yeah, actually I'm going to go. And so, yeah, I kind of set it up for myself just with a local WhatsApp group with local mums. It had about 20 or 30 mums. And we would say, you know, someone would say we're going to the park, and more often than not, 1, 2, 3 or more would join. And I thought, if I am struggling with this, and actually I'm quite a confident person, I'm the person who creates the play dates and the get-togethers in my group, like I always have been. If I'm struggling to find people, then there must be tons of other mums in a similar situation. And that's where the app came along. I just thought, right, I'm going to create this for everyone around the UK so anyone can use it. And that's what we're doing now. So like I said, it's quite small. We've got 1,000 mums on there at the moment. And it really relies on mums, inviting mums to make it bigger. So we've got a few pockets around the country. And it's exciting. Like if I've had people get in touch saying, you know, they met, you know, their cousin's cousin or something that, you know, they had tons in common with, but they just, you know, didn't know they lived down the road. Or other people saying that actually their therapist, they had done CBT therapy and they said, now you need to, you know, create a support structure around you. And they didn't know how to find those mums. And then they'd be able to use Mummy Links to do that. And sometimes they make a lifelong friend. You know, some people have said, you know, I've got 1 or 2 friends now that I meet regularly with, and that's great. But for other people, it's not going to work like that. It's just finding someone to do something with now so that we all feel a bit happier and supported in life. And I'd love to use it to get to the point where it'll be different around the country, but I know I used to live in Rains Park near Wimbledon, and you'd walk down the road and there were buggies everywhere, mums and buggies everywhere, but you'd all just be head down and ignore each other. And like, I'd love to get to the point where you'd walk down the road and, you know, you might just smile and nod, say hello, maybe stop and have a chat even, and become mums supporting each other and just smiling at each other, as opposed to, you know, head down, I'm a mum on my own and I need to get through this. Like, we're in it together, so let's bring ourselves together and do that properly. That's the hope anyway.
It's a beautiful vision. But also you'd been talking about a campaign that you've created, right? The hashtag Shouty Selfie.
Yeah.
What I love about your story is that you saw something for yourself. You decided that you were going to actually now support others in that endeavor. And so this campaign is part of, I guess, postnatal depression awareness. Is that correct?
Yes. So it kicks off Maternal Mental Health Week, which is kind of the first week of May. It jumped slightly into the back end of April this year. And it's been run the last 3 years, the Maternal Mental Health Week. And so 2 years ago, they asked for people to come up with ideas to get their hashtag and things like that out there. And it's quite funny. I'd only been on social media literally for 2 months, other than Facebook. I was completely new to Twitter and Instagram. And I thought, I just came up with this idea, hashtag Shouty Selfie. And I thought, people should be shouting that they are either proud to have or have got through a mental health issue like postnatal depression, or they should be shouting, you know, that they support and love those people who do. So it's very simple. I just get people to take a selfie of them shouting, post it on, this year it's on the 29th of April, post it on there with the hashtag Shouty Selfie. And that can be all they do, or I do collect email addresses and I send some like exact wording that people can use. I've got about, I think, 600 initiators, I call them, this year, where they'll pop that post out first thing in the morning that day and really get it going. And In the first year, it got maternal mental health trending in half an hour, which was amazing. And 1 million impressions, and last year was 8 million impressions. And considering I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, it's obviously a campaign that, you know, really strikes a chord with a lot of people. So we had Huffington Post and BBC 5 Live and Sky News last year supporting it with Heads Together, and a few celebrities and stuff like that as well. And we've got some lined up for this year. And it's really nice because it's something that's so close to so many mums' hearts. And the last 2 years, the text that I've asked people to use, but they can tweak it if they want to or completely change it. They wrote something like, this is my hashtag shouty selfie because I love a mum who struggled with postnatal depression. Then it had a bit more information. And the idea is that, because I know some mums have struggled, but they still don't want to out themselves, so to speak. So it can just be them saying that they love someone with it. They can be talking about themselves, they can be talking about someone else. And it's just really nice. And then I create throughout the day I call it the Hall of Shouty Selfie Hall of Fame, like a collage of all of the faces shouting. And it's like this huge big picture of tons of faces, everyone shouting together. And yeah, it just seems to work really well. People just really like it. So yeah, hopefully it's going to get bigger and bigger each year. And I think we have seen more and more mums and like following celebrities and things like that talking about these struggles and just normalizing it, really saying, you know, it happens to 1 in 4 mums. Most likely it's happened or is happening to a mum that you know if it's not you. And so let's stand together and say that we show our support.
And kind of what occurs to me is that being human, it's just part of the human condition. Like, I'm not saying that, oh, you're human, therefore you're going to suffer. It was more like we all, like most of the work that I've done, people I've seen, they've all struggled at one point or another. And it would seem to me that we really aren't alone. And I guess this understanding of like, me too, I've been through it, as you say, normalizes it.
Yeah, because I think, so I remember when I looked into loneliness, so obviously Mummy Links helps with the physical loneliness more, but Shouty Selfie helps more with the emotional or mental loneliness, because it was when I started talking about how I was feeling to friends, family, and eventually the media, I was astounded at how many mums said to me, yeah, me too, I'm feeling just like that. And, you know, some of them said they were on antidepressants, some of them they said they were having therapy, others weren't, but, you know, and I just thought, I'm not on my own in this. And that immediately made me feel better, because I thought there was, you know, something fundamentally wrong with me, when actually, you know, I'm just the 25% of mums that it affects. And, you know, we know that there's a link between loneliness and depression. And we as mums are the loneliest we've ever been. Like, we feel connected through Facebook and social media and stuff like that. But actually, you know, we're not, you know, going down to the stream to wash our babies' diapers like together, or, you know, we're not around people. And I remember reading a statistic that loneliness can be as bad as 15 cigarettes a day is for your physical health. And you're just, you know, we all know, whether we smoke or not, we all know that it's not great for us physically. So why are we letting loneliness continue growing in our society? Like, we need to stop it.
Well, I guess the feelings of loneliness, if we don't understand where they're coming from, it would suggest that it becomes this issue. I think normalizing it is a beautiful, beautiful way, because a lot of the time, especially for us strong women, we berate ourselves, right? We judge ourselves. We say, well, this isn't me. Should not be happening. But if we just accept that it can happen.
Yeah. Yes, my therapist always got me to stop saying, I should do this, or this should have happened. It's not, nothing should. There's no expectation. It's just something does or doesn't happen. And
right, exactly. And then we make a meaning out of it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's that meaning that creates all of that thinking. Emily, if somebody wants to get in contact with you and wants to be part of this and everything else, how can they do that?
So if they go to mummylinks.com/shouty-selfie, which is spelled IE at the end of both shouty and selfie, then they'll find a page that has a link where they can sign up to a mailing list, where they get updates over the next couple of weeks in terms of, you know, what to write on the posts. There's also a bit more information about Shouty Selfie and who supported it, and the Hall of Fame picture from last year. And also on that website, I've got blogs of my experience, not as many as I'd like, they're not all up there. But also on social media, I'm just at Mummy Links app. They can find posts there. I often share my experience, but also I'm very collaborative. Like, I love sharing other people's experiences as well. And like things about symptoms and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the best place is the website, mummylinks.com. And then from there, they can find out all the other bits and pieces.
Wonderful. So thank you. Amazing. And for those of you that have been listening, I hope that you join in and that we all in it together.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Until the next time, bye-bye for now. And there we have it, another amazing episode of The Joy of Being. If you enjoyed this podcast, you may well enjoy the book as well. You can either download a free chapter, www.marinapearson.com/chapter, where I go into much more depth into how we can create more time and space as mums. And if that doesn't fly and you're more curious about getting the entire book, then you can do that too at www.marinapearson.com/pre-order. There you'll find a page with all the amazing goodies that you'll get if you pre-order it before the 10th of May. So until next week's episode, remember, you are the joy you seek.